Very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham World. It's the end of the week. We've got a day before our first game against Sunderland. The season starts finally in the Premier League. This was meant to be a show to do a preview on that game. But it seems that I've been distracted with yet other stories that have been breaking overnight. And as reported, at the beginning of the week, it seems that we will be losing quite a number of players before this transfer window shuts. Now, we know that 9 players have already left West Ham in one guise or another. 6 players whose contracts had ended, 2 players who were on loan, but the loan spells had not been extended. And of course, we sold Mohamed Kudus as well. And as reported at the start of the week, there could be as many as a further 5 players destined to leave West Ham United before this window shuts. All this on the eve of us beginning our Premier League campaign. Not great, is it? Now, these players include the likes of Edson Alvarez, Emerson, Guido Rodriguez, Andy Irving, and Maxwel Cornet. Now, I mentioned the situation regarding Emerson in a show that I did on Thursday about discipline. But the Alvarez situation has now been picked up by Fabrizio Romano overnight, and there is a strong indication that the player is making his way to a German club, thought to be either Bayer Leverkusen or Borussia Dortmund. Now, Borussia Dortmund were interested in the player just before he signed for West Ham. Apparently, they had virtually agreed a deal back in 2023. Now, just how this leaves the West Ham squad, I do not know. Whilst we can all agree that the likes of Rodriguez, Cornet, and to some extent Andy Irving won't necessarily be missed, and whilst we have adequate cover for Emerson if he departs, losing Edson Alvarez when we're desperately trying to sign more central midfielders, or when we desperately need more central midfielders rather than getting rid of any, seems a little bit concerning. Now, whilst Alvarez may not be the most disciplined of players on the pitch, he is one of a few, if not the only player in the senior squad who has got some bite to his game, someone who's got a bit of steel, someone who can sort of like fortify that central midfield that we're kind of lacking at the moment. Now, Graham Potter talks about sometimes finding solutions from within, finding solutions from what we already have. There is no way that he's going to be able to change the style and the way of playing for either the likes of Thomas Souček or James Ward-Prowse overnight. There is no way that either of them are going to all of a sudden become faster, tougher, stronger in how they play their football. Now, they have a use, don't get me wrong. As we all know, it's the heart of midfield, however, which other teams, a heart of our midfield, which other teams have managed to cut through with relative ease last season. And we're still woefully lacking in that area. And whilst I understand that Alvarez can be a liability at times, as it stands right now, on the eve of Premier League football kicking off, I kind of rather have him than no one at all. But it seems he'll be leaving, and every West Ham fan will be scratching their heads in confusion over why we've not addressed the central midfield situation that we knew needed major surgery and should have been top priority in this summer transfer window. Now, in my report on Thursday about the discipline, it seems that the axe is falling not just on Emerson and his timekeeping, but on other players who Potter may deem to be disruptive forces within the squad. And perhaps Alvarez is one of those players. But if Potter knew that, if Potter knew that he wanted to get shot of Alvarez, then even more reason why he should have been, or West Ham should have been looking for replacements in midfield much earlier in this transfer window rather now than in the last few weeks. There are other players who it seems are falling foul of Graham Potter as well. And one has to question why, after what seemed to be, I don't know, we thought we sorted out our goalkeeping situation, why all of a sudden we put in yet another bid or a bid for Piers Charles of Sheffield Wednesday. Where did that come from? Does this mean that I know we were interested in this goalkeeper, but I thought everything was done and dusted with regards to the goalkeeping situation. So does this mean that Alphonse Areola's status at the club is also under consideration? Perhaps it is just another 5 players leaving. Maybe if we end up signing another keeper, it could be another 6 players leaving before this window shuts. We know that agents are already working on finding new clubs for Rodriguez, Irving, and Cornet. It now looks like we're finding another club for Alvarez, and it looks as if we could be finding another club for Emerson and Alphonse Areola as well. Now, this is all shades of David Moyes when he came back for his second spell at West Ham United, with the same excuses that were being used back then, that players didn't fit into David Moyes' style. It seems that, and then all of a sudden, one by one, they started to leave. Anderson left, then Sebastian Haller, and several others in that time as well. But it seems to be happening again, the same excuse being used, that players aren't necessarily fitting into Graham Potter's style. And whilst I don't necessarily have an issue with the changing of the old guard, what is sensible to do is to have replacements already lined up to ensure that there are no gaps left in the squad. As mentioned, if Emerson leaves, we've got Malik Diouf and Ollie Scholes to replace. Not many fans, as I've said, will mourn the loss of Rodriguez or Irving or Cornet. There seems to be a concerted push to find now a backup keeper to Mads Hermansen, which would mean that even Areola won't necessarily be missed because there'll be replacements for him. But Alvarez in central midfield, we already needed at least one additional central midfielder to be added to the current squad, and that's before anybody else left. It seems that with just over 2 weeks before the window shuts and a day before our Premier League campaign kicks off, we're now having to start doing some last-minute rushed business. The transfer scenario doesn't change at West Ham. We've been here before, and here again, looking at having to make panic transfer purchases for players coming in just to fill gaps when we've had all summer to do the right thing. Now, players with attitude won't be targeted, so we can ignore several rumours that link us to Yves Bissouma of Spurs and apparently Rafael Onyedika of Club Brugge. It seems that they'll no longer be particular targets that we'll be aiming for. Now, there is faint talk that we're still interested in Southampton's Matthias Fernandes, and that we may also be approaching Leicester City's Bilal El Khanous. And if we get these 2 players, and then perhaps the anxiety will be eased somewhat. But we're not the only clubs looking at signing those 2 players. And yet again, we're sort of slow off the mark. And before we know it, probably both those players will be signing for other clubs. Now, there is also talk about bringing in academy player, under 21s player, promoting 19-year-old Mohamedou Kante to the senior squad. Now, look, he had a great performance, a half-hour performance against Woking in midweek. But one half-hour good performance doesn't automatically make a player a Premier League player. Now, although he most definitely did stand out from the rest of the pack in that half-hour performance, would it be too much to expect a 19-year-old to come in and take the mantle in our central midfield? Look, I'd love for him to be promoted into the senior squad, but to get regular game time, I don't know. It's going to be really, really interesting to see where this rest of this transfer window takes us. Nothing is ever certain with West Ham United. Nothing is ever straightforward. And yet again, we find ourselves in a situation where we not only need one central midfielder, but we could be looking for 2. And with talk about not being able to find midfielders who can strengthen this squad, it's going to be a bit tough, isn't it? Look, I will be back with a preview of the game against Sunderland. I promise. It's all the script is written and ready to go. But in the meantime, this is the latest news that as many as 5 players, maybe 6 players could be leaving West Ham United, and Edson Alvarez could be leading that charge. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're new to the channel and yet to become a subscriber, please subscribe. And also, please look out for the membership on my channel. If you're interested in becoming a member, please look out for the details on the West Ham Voice YouTube account and do become a member as well. I'll see you all soon later on today.